Hello, Brett. Thank you for your time. Your documentary is fascinating, as all of your documentaries have been of past. But this one, Breaking Olympia, the Phil Heath story. Why Phil Heath rather than, say, Ronnie Coleman, who was Mr. Olympia, well, 8 times to date so far?
Well, Ronnie actually has a doc done on him on Netflix, but we still would have done it on Phil in this case. We first started talking to Phil in 2017, and Phil had just won his seventh title, so he was on that path of pure domination at that point.
Yeah,
And he had seen Ice Guardians, documentary I'd done, and he wanted to start getting a hold of his story right now, at that time, because he thought he was, going to be going on to win the next title and the next title and break the championship
yeah.
record. So we were, of course, interested in that right away. And the plan was that we were going to get the film funded while he went and won his eighth title. And then we would pick up from there and while he would go and break the record. Well, as many people who follow the sport probably know, he faced a major injury in 2018. He ended up losing the title. And then the story altered from one of pure domination and a winning streak to a comeback story, which, to be honest, almost became more interesting in some aspects because you got to further see his personality develop.
So, with that having happened sort of partway through the filming, was there any kind of reticence on Phil's part to continue filming? Bearing in mind he had this awful injury, it jeopardized his career, and he kind of thought, well, actually, no, I don't want this any more of this. I've got enough on my plate.
I'm sure there probably was. He didn't voice it to us, but there was also long periods of time where, he was just healing and doing his own thing. The plan on our end was to do it no matter what, because it was still fascinating and intriguing, even just to tell his life story up to that point if he had gone no further. But yeah, it was interesting. There was a lot of ups and downs. Of course, we had the pandemic right when we had planned to shoot as well. We had gotten the funding, and Phil decided to make his comeback.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we had this pandemic, and we're from Canada, so we had to go through all these training processes and get certified and all these different things of trying to get over the border legally, obviously, and to be able to shoot in an environment that at the time was unknown for everyone. So we were going through a lot of protocols, a lot of tests and stuff at that point. But Phil, yeah, Phil, I think he had to search long and hard during that injury. He faced a lot of psychological obstacles that came back up in his life that he had experienced previously in his life through other sports he had done.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he made the choice to go forward, and that's the story that we ended up getting, which is pretty fascinating.
Now, what fascinates me about this is something that's similar to your last documentary about inmate number one with Danny Trejo. And both of these men out there, they have these tough guy, hard men personas.
Right.
But in both of the documentaries, they actually come over as really as vulnerable as the rest of us are. Was that part of the appeal for you with Phil as the subject matter?
It's my favorite part of filmmaking when we can get people to open up the way that Phil did and Danny did. It's the most intriguing part. It's the part that I relate to the most because I'm definitely not lifting the weights Phil does. I'm definitely not looking the way Phil does or experiencing the celebrity type life that he does. But I do understand the mental obstacles that he has to overcome, maybe on a lower scale. My personal life, I have those types of obstacles. I'm sure you have those types of obstacles. And that to me, the evolution of that mindset is the most fascinating part of his story because he kind of alters as he goes. He did 7 years of straight domination where each year he had to, find ways to motivate himself over and over because they go through an excruciating process to get to where they do by the time that the competition comes about. So he was doing that, and he was the elite of the elite. He was like the Michael Jordan, LeBron James type character within the sport. But then that altered for him completely. He went from being this dominant character to now he was in the exact opposite chair where he was having to make a comeback. And that's where I noticed personally when we would talk to him, the vulnerability started coming out over time. and he would open up. And then by the end of the doc, it's pretty inspirational,
Yeah.
the mindset that he actually arrives at. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool way of thinking about life.
Now, your contributors that you've got for this, many of the contributors are his rivals, and the ones that fascinated me are ones like Jay Cutler and
Yeah,
even Kai Green, and
right.
there's a lot of animosity between them, and now they seem to have become friends. But I'm wondering if I might upset a few people saying this, but like the World Wrestling, is it all a show?
No, no. No, it's not. Um, but you're right. I do think that Kai and Phil have come to a general understanding that is much more friendly. And I don't want to speak for them, but it does feel more like a friendship type thing, but like almost like a brotherly, we're still going to beat the crap out of each other. But, you know, there's respect that wasn't there. There wasn't when they were competing. That is real. What you see on camera, like, I know because Phil would talk about it behind the scenes too, that what he felt during that time. So what he says on camera at that point is exactly what he felt in real life. Like he would get emotional behind the scenes with it as well. But the respect that he showed Kai on camera is also the respect that he had behind the scenes, off camera. And then you had Jay Cutler, which is almost a polar opposite type relationship where Jay was this figure that Phil had really looked up to.
Yeah.
And when Phil had won the title, it was a much different feeling he had with Jay than those times where he was beating Kai, and Kai was he was not happy with the results at that point.
Now, whilst we're talking about contributors, the one what I would suggest is the glaring omission is the presence of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Was there
Yeah.
any a possibility of him getting involved, or was he not interested, or was he even approached?
Oh yeah, he was a pro. Oh yeah, yeah. He was like the list was up there with Ronnie Coleman and
Yeah,
oh, well, all those guys. Um, you have to remember it was during the pandemic, so it was very hard to get a lot of people, and it took a long time to get some of the interviews. Like it would, could take up to a year, and even Dwayne, to have his interview. Again, it was during the pandemic, so we had to send questions to him, and he had to shoot it, in his home or in Hawaii, wherever he was at that point. So, but Arnold, yeah, he was approached. It would have been a fascinating component to the interview, but it just didn't line up. I don't quite remember. Like, it was a long time ago that we shot this at this point. I don't remember the specifics of why he couldn't. I don't believe it was just a shutdown. I don't want to do this, but it was more of a logistical issue, dealing with pandemic stuff and whatever else he may have had on his plate.
so whilst we're on the topic of Arnie, Phil has this obviously quite astonishing physique, and
Mm.
the athletic aspect now of his career seems to be, with all due respect to him, kind of behind him now. And so it seems that the obvious move for him now is into film. He would be an obvious action hero.
Right.
Why has he not done that?
I think he's actually at the point where he is ready to start doing that. I know that he's expressed interest in it, and like you said too, of all the bodybuilders, oddly enough, Phil's shape of his body fits the superhero physique,
Yeah.
almost to a pinpoint. That's one of the things he was known for, was almost he has bubbly type muscles. They like pop out at you. They're 3D. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Phil start showing up in films very soon, to be honest, because he's motivated to do it, from my understanding. And when he's motivated to do something, it seems as though he makes it in whatever he chooses, whether it's bodybuilding or basketball or other things in life. So,
So it's quite a lengthy documentary. It's just shy of 2 hours. But
mm.
is there anything in the documentary or that's ended up on the room floor that you would love to have included in it?
um, I think we got most of what we wanted in it. I think more so what I wanted was more time with him, but the pandemic just didn't allow for it. Um, so we had planned to start shooting quite a bit earlier
Yeah.
with him to gather more of that. But ultimately, we did get the most poignant moments, which was the most important part. And as you said, the film is 2 hours, so there's only so much that you can stuff in there. But I'm trying to think of, was there something else that didn't make it in? There's little things, but they weren't critical to the arc of his story. And I think they actually will end up showing up in social media videos over time. Like I did one where it's covering all his injuries because we went into the major injury, but we didn't cover some of the other stuff that he had been facing along the way. And he's sitting there at one point and he's just pointing at here, here, there, and it's like almost 5 minutes of him talking about all the injuries he faced as he was going through this. So there's little things like that, and he also where he's talking about other Olympians like Arnold and posing and all these things, but they just weren't critical to the arc of his story.
So finally then, with this now sort of out, what can we expect from you next, either from documentary or maybe even feature film?
Yeah, I will be stepping into true crime for the first time next, and a kind of different type of true crime, which it's a comedian, a really famous comedian, whose brother stole $12 million from him while he was being his manager. It's Dane Cook,
Oh, right,
comedian
okay.
Dane Cook. Yes, so it's a story covering that wild time that covered his life with his stepbrother as he um, went through with stealing 12 million, and Dane had to put him back in jail. His brother was a prison guard at one point, and he pulled him out so that he could become his manager. He stole 12 million, and he put him right back in the same prison pulled him out of.
I can imagine Dane will be quite vocal about that.
Yeah, yeah, he's very well. It's very interesting. Yeah, the spectrum of emotions he goes through is wild as well.
Brilliant. Great. I look forward to seeing that. Thank you ever so much for your time, Brett. As I say, it's a
Awesome.
fascinating documentary and I enjoyed your Danny Trejo one. So I'm looking forward to your next one now.
Thank you so much. That was really fun.
Thanks. Thanks, Brett. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.